Hi, and welcome to the Bookkeepers Podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I'm really thrilled to be joined by Osmaan Sharif today. Osmaan, welcome back. I think you said to me just before we started, this is your fourth episode of the Bookkeepers Podcast. I think you should get a prize for that,
Definitely. I think I should get like an award or something. And I think it's actually the first time I've ever been such a repeat guest on any podcast. So it was amazing to be asked again. And I know we're going to have a great conversation as always, Zoe.
Oh, I love it. What do you know what? I love my husband said to me before, oh my gosh, you're talking to Osmaan. He's like, I could listen to him all day, like on the podcast. I think people love who are listening to the audio, people love hearing from you anyway, but you've got so much, like every time we talk to you, there's something interesting that I learn about myself, and you really sort of get us out of our own way in terms of confidence, and we want to talk about taking action today. So for anyone who hasn't heard a previous episode with you, Osmaan, can you tell us a bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've now been in this world for coming up for 18 years in May this year. So, been around the block quite a bit. And previous to that, I was a HR manager, worked in the corporate world and leadership development. And the long story short of it was I've always been passionate about people, human beings like me and you and all your listeners, and figuring out, well, how do we help ourselves to get the best results? How do we have the best mindset? So my journey started off a lot around, NLP, neuro linguistic programming and coaching, and very much then working with business owners. So, over the last 18 years, it's been amazing being in the corner with lots of business owners at various stages. Primarily now, business owners come to me when they are feeling stuck. They're looking to grow their business, but they're in that phase where they're overwhelmed, they're confused, there's lots of things that they can do. And instead of taking consistent action, as I'm sure we'll talk about, Zoe, what can end up happening is they're grinding the gears a little bit. It feels like they're second guessing themselves. They're a little bit kind of confused about what is next and what is the best action for them to take. So that's kind of what I primarily spend my days doing now, being in the corner of business owners that are established fairly much. They're not in the just thinking about having a business. It's like they're out there, they're doing it, but it's about, well, how do they actually grow it in the best way for them as well? And the big thing that I'm passionate about, and we'll talk about today, is I really want all business owners to really feel like they're in flow with what they're doing, and also that they're growing in their business. And that's why I'm all about, how do we embrace your entrepreneurial superpower so that you're taking the right action that feels easy, that you wake up going, yes, I get to do this. And that's where real magic happens as well. So that's kind of what I get to spend my time doing, and I'm really passionate about, as I'm sure you can tell already.
I love it. I love it so much. So tell me about entrepreneurial superpowers, because I think, well, behind the scenes, for anyone who doesn't know what we do, we've got a team that is growing, and we're always, as your business grows, you sort of bring someone in to give you a bit of support, and then you find there are these other roles. And Joe and I have recently had this conversation. We've been reading Traction. I don't know if you're familiar with that book. And we've been reading Traction, and we've been really focused on like who in our business is the visionary, who in our business is the integrator, the person that makes sure all of the things get done. And we're building a piece of software at the moment as well with a new team. And we've gone through that whole like storming, norming, performing, whatever the team, like that really has happened in practice. And we've had to say there, and maybe it's been easier to learn because we're a new team, we've had to say who does what, who takes which role. And I've personally, I felt like I've been kind of put in a pigeonhole of a job, and I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like I'm allowed to do that. And it really is quite a sort of shift in terms of how I think and what I'm allowing myself to do. And I'm just wondering whether what you said about entrepreneurial superpowers, a bit about those roles, or like what you're best suited to. I wonder if you can tell me about what that means.
Absolutely. So, I love the fact that the example that you shared there about your current situation in reality is great, because you're involving other people, and that's where it's about how do we all play to our strengths as well. But I want us to really kind of open up the conversation, because I know you'll have, bookkeepers here listening, and it might feel like it's just them just now, or a small team. That could be contractors, it could be whoever's in your support network as well. And for me, the biggest thing that's made the difference personally, but also when I work with my clients, and I've been working with them, as I say, for 18 years, is when you give yourself permission to look at, right, what's the best way for me to do things? And also really owning and understanding that, we all have what I call your entrepreneurial superpower. And these are the things that feel really natural to us. These are the things that if we do, sometimes it feels like we're cheating, okay? Because it feels like we could just do it and it's so in flow. We're really enjoying it. We're leaning into it. It connects with our talents and our capabilities. And that is the key thing when you understand and you give yourself permission to really embrace your entrepreneurial superpower. That's where real magic happens and growth happens. But what I've seen all too often, and again, I put my hands up here as well, is when we are our own bosses and when we are the business owner, sometimes we can actually forget what makes us, do things in the best way that plays to our talents. And instead, we can spend more of our time focusing on the things that we think we either should do or that is the hardest thing for us to do, right? And we kind of spend our time developing our weaknesses or following strategies that you go, right, it's good for them. They're suggesting it, whoever them is in your world. But when we try and do it, it just feels like hard work. It feels like you're fitting your feet into, another person's shoes. Have you ever been bowling? Because I know in the olden days they don't do it just now, but when you go bowling and they give you somebody else's shoes that everybody's worn, it kind of feels a bit icky. That's what often happens from my experience around when we are doing things and spending a lot of time doing things that actually isn't, playing to our strengths effectively. And that's kind of what, your entrepreneurial superpower for me is all about. So it is both a mindset perspective, because it gives you that chance to go, right, there's many different ways that we can grow our businesses, that we can collaborate, that we can work with our teams and effectively do all parts that we have to in our business. But we just take that step back and go, what's the best way for me? What's the best way for us, especially if you are working with each other? That's where you get to look at, am I enabling myself to play to my entrepreneurial superpower? Am I enabling my team members, my collaborators, whoever I'm working with, to play to their superpower? And when we all start playing more to our superpowers, that's where it just feels much more fun. Things happen much more effortlessly. And that's where growth becomes a lot more, easier, for a better word as well. So I could talk about it a lot more detail, but that's a bigger picture. Does that kind of connect with the kind of,
oh my gosh. Yeah, 100%. Because I think that the thing I think I should do, I don't want to make this all about me, Osmaan, but no. I've literally just come out of a team meeting, and I think sometimes you sort of see this playing out, don't you? I spend a lot of time saying, I'm like probably not the best person to be leading the team and all these individuals, and that kind of thing. Like I've been a manager before. I could do that, but actually the bit where I do have lots of ideas and product development, that's definitely my area. And but I feel guilty if I'm in that space of flow, because I'm like, but that isn't the hard work. But then for someone else, it's the hard work. So it's so interesting.
And that's where we could be our own worst enemies, right? And I've had many people going, yeah, but Osmaan, that'd be easy, right? And I'm like, yeah, and right, we could be conditioned to think that we have to be in this hustle mode, that building a business and growing a business has to be really hard work. But that's why, as I say, it's just a paradigm shift for us to go, what if it doesn't have to be? What if we get to focus on the things that can feel much more easier? And therefore, it feels easy to us, but again, what you just said there, if somebody else, even if they were to have the very similar business as you, and if they were to follow the exact same strategies, what might be your superpower might actually feel like their kryptonite. That would be like a nightmare for them as well. So I use personality profiles to help us to start to uncover what our entrepreneurial superpower is. And again, coming from a background in HR and leadership development, there's so many different profiles out there. There's DISC, there's Myers-Briggs, and all of them can be helpful to shine the light on who we are and how do we do our best work. But I'd say about 16 years ago now, I came across a profile because one of my peers recommended, called Wealth Dynamics. And that's the one that I personally use. That's the one that I use with every single one of my coaching clients and business owners, because it is very much like you just get this a Bible, effectively, an instruction manual for you to go, okay, if you were to give yourself permission to lean more into some of what is your profile, that's where we're then embracing our superpower as well. One caveat I'll say here, it's not to say that you literally then go, oh, I'm not good with X or Y in my business, I'm just going to ignore it. No. It's not an excuse for inexcusable behaviors. You might still have to do, get your accounts done, for example. I'm talking bookkeepers, I know, right? But you might go, but I'm a creator. I'm all about great ideas, right? But no. It gives you that chance to go, is there a way that I can do that in the best way for me? Or can I then use systems or other people to help me to still spend more of my time in the way that plays to my strengths as well? And I know, Zoe, you've been on my podcast recently as well with Joe as well, and we did your wealth dynamics profiles. And it's so funny because you just mentioned it just kind of a few moments ago. You're a creator out of the 8 profiles. Okay, so creators are amazing at business ideas, product development. Like, that's kind of where they're in their zone of genius. So it can feel easier for you. It's probably where it helps you to grow the business, and again, collaborating on where can we go, setting that vision. It doesn't mean that you can't execute and deliver as well, but can you see if you ignored that and if you went, no, I actually spend all my time leading the team, it could be a recipe for disaster, because especially again for creators, they're not the best generally at leading a team. And again, I know Joe's not here, right? But Joe, and I love the fact that she, out of the 8 wealth dynamics profiles, is a star profile. So even between the two of you leading the organization, it should give you that comfort to go, great, there is some differences between you. And when is it great for Joe to use her superpower a lot more to still shine the light on what you are doing, your ideas, your products, your services, all the things that you're doing in your world. But she doesn't have to try and be you. You don't have to try and be her. But also, I just want to emphasize, that's only 2 out of 8 profiles. So there's 6 other kind of superpowers that can really come into the mix at the right time and stage of projects and businesses that then allow you to play to your strengths, and for you to then allow other people to play to their strengths as well. So that's just really hopefully just giving you that permission and that reminder to go, you are your superpower, you know your superpower. How do you actually just give yourself that permission to go, great, it's liberating that I get to choose to purposefully focus on the things that are actually more in flow for me. Any thoughts on that, Zoe?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, now I wonder, how did I end up bookkeeping? But I think the thing is, I like I can see the vision for what I want things to look like, but then I'm not the best person to implement it. So I can design it once when I'm able to be excited and use that creative energy. But then the best way for me to make sure it happens is to make sure there's someone else who can fill that. So I might, and when you've just said about Joe and I, obviously we're business partners, and that might be different for someone else listening to this who's running a bookkeeping practice alone. And we'll talk about that in a second. But from our point of view, I can say, Joe, I have this idea that we go and do this. And because she's the star profile, I can say, off you go. You're going to go and be the person who does that, shows up for that, is the KPI and all of those things. And then although Joe can 100% lead the team, she also needs to make sure she's got a right-hand person who's there, who's able to come in and make sure that the following up and the ticking the boxes happens. So that's how we've built our team. But I'm just wondering, for someone listening to this who is I'm actually on their own, what do you do when it's just you in your business?
I think that's a really great question to kind of reflect upon as well, because again, I don't want to go into all the nitty gritty about all the 8 profiles, but I'd 100% recommend anybody listening to this who's not done it definitely does do it. I can explain how to do that kind of as a conversation goes. But even with the sense of yourself and Joe being a star and a creator, the big picture of that means that you are both actually at the top of the wealth dynamic square, which means that both of you are quite visionary, bigger picture. In essence, the star has much more connection to, the people energy, shining the light, taking something and going, right, how do we actually kind of now take the idea and get it out there a lot more as well? But what your team has, what they bring into the mix is more of that grounded energy. Okay, so that's kind of more at the bottom of the square, which is where a lot of the more repetition happens, the service delivery happens, and that's where individuals like me, my superpower out the wealth dynamics profile is a trader profile. So me and you're the exact opposite, right? Okay, that's why I absolutely still love. I've been talking about even this profiling tool for over 16 years now, and I still never get bored of it. Okay, but whereas creators generally, I know I'm generalizing this, they can quite often, once they've done something, it could be like, okay, right, I've done it. What's next? What's next? So the reason why I'm sharing that as an example and bringing it up is if you are a small business owner and it is just yourself, okay, it gives you hopefully that insight, but also that permission to go, right, depending on which of the 8 profiles you are or your superpower, there will be certain stages of business or projects, or even some of the the operation and the kind of the different elements that we have to do around business that we might find easier or we might find more difficult. So let me share one practical example. So I know, for example, that some business owners and even bookkeepers, they might be more of a mechanic profile or a lord profile. Those are individuals that are amazing at what they do. They're great at going, right, okay, how do we make things better? How do we make it more effective and efficient in that way? But they're not always the best, or they don't always get as in flow putting themselves out there or being the star of the show, okay? Or coming up with brand new ideas in the first place. So let's say if you're starting your business for the first time, it might feel a little bit more clunky, for a better word. Those initial, few months or even a few years, depending on where you are and what you're doing, because that's where you might be going, right, well, is this the right idea? There might be a lot more second guessing, for example. You might be trying to be creative or trying to be, the person in front of the camera, for example, being a star, but you go, oh, it's just not working in the same way. It feels really hard work. And that's where some people end up giving up, or they're going, it's not for me. But what I'd invite you to instead thinking about is, okay, why am I doing it? What's the purpose of it? It might be, well, I'm just starting. People need to know I exist, right? But then you're able to go, okay, there's many different ways that I can do that. And it doesn't have to be just the way that I see other people doing it in my industry. That might be a case of going, right, here's my first product or service. It's the perfect, minimal viable product, right? Because let's say a Lord profile or a mechanic profile, they'll come into their element once they've actually delivered something, or they've had the first, round of it. Then they're able to go, that worked, that didn't work. And that's where they get more into their flow and their superpower when they're able to refine it. So the thing, when you know your superpower, it gives you the insight to take action and make things happen in the best possible way. So if I'm working with someone that is somebody that's more of an accumulator or a lord or a mechanic profile, my job is to help them to just get something out there as quickly as they can, because that's where they'll learn so much more about, okay, let me refine it, compared to if they were spending months of staring in front of a blank sheet of paper going, what should I do? What's my idea? What's my 5-year vision? I'm like, wrong questions for you to be asking. That will form much more from you actually kind of like getting the feedback and seeing what's actually happening in reality. Whereas, for someone like yourself or Joe, I'd be giving you the complete opposite advice to do, because I'd be like, great, listen to what's happening here, take something and get it out there. But once it's out there, what you need to watch out for is getting bored really easily. Then starting to have that, what next? What's next? Because a lot of people that are, stars, creators, supporters, they start a lot of things, they plant a lot of seeds, but then they actually don't reap the rewards of it, because they then end up getting distracted, or they go, this isn't the right thing. Let me go back. I've got a new idea. There's something else. So every profile has things that help them in their business as their superpower, but also could be a kryptonite. But once we understand it, it gives you that chance to go, right, warning, this is how I best approach this, or what I need to watch out for, so I basically don't sabotage my business or sabotage myself as I grow my business. Does that help? Just to bring it to life a bit more.
It's like you're in my head. It's like you actually have seen my to-do list of all the ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about like taking action and what to do, but it feels like it's so different for different people. But I think we can probably focus in on those like Lord profiles. But I'm also thinking someone listening to this might want to go and find out what their profile is. So how do people find out about Worth Dynamics? Are you going to share a link with us?
Absolutely. I'll share a link with you. If you go to my website, effectively, you'll find it easily there. So if you go to osmansharif.com, on that homepage, you'll see Wealth Dynamics or your entrepreneurial superpower. As I say, and I'm biased, but I'm not ashamed when I say this, I honestly think that every single business owner deserves to know what their superpower is, because it just makes so much of the business growth and the planning and the execution so much simpler, because it gives you that chance to go, right, let me do more of that, let me do less of that. Even when I'm then looking to collaborate or getting other people involved, if you choose to, you're able to then go, who's the right person? Because again, I'm going to rant here, but often people go, I'm so busy, I need another person that's like me. And I'm like, no. That can often be the worst thing. Often that's the case of going, no, what are the things that we can take off your to-do list that's not playing to your superpower, that allows you to kind of execute or whatever it is, depending on your goal, so that you get to spend more time in your superpower as well. So don't just get another you, because that could often just cause more chaos. It's about being smart with what do I need, who do I need at different kind of stages and parts of your business as well. So that's where you can find out your profile. There's two ways of doing it. Obviously you could do the profile alone, but I'm all about personalizing it. And that's why how I work with my clients just now is taking them through your entrepreneurial superpower immersion. So it's like do your profile plus have a one-to-one with me, so I get to understand, well, what does this mean for you? Tell me about your business. Where are you? So that I can help guide you in the best possible way. And then also I've got all the resources, from how can each of the 8 profiles play to their profile much more easily, with lots of examples and do's and don'ts in all areas of business as well. So that's kind of more of the immersion experience. But so that kind of hopefully answers that question. But I just want to kind of take it back for 1 second of what you said there, Zoe. It's one of the best questions to ask yourself. Well, how do I make it happen? And the way I like to kind of illustrate this is, have you ever been to a conference and you have, let's say, if it's a panel or a multi-speaker conference, right? And you're sitting there, you're so eager, you're like, okay, right. The first person comes on, and let's say it's about, marketing strategies. Let's just use that as an example. One person might come on and go, okay, what you need to do is, get on Facebook Live every single day. The other person might come on and go, oh, what you need to do is joint ventures. The other person might come on and go, oh, what you need to do is write a book. So you might have 8 different speakers that come on, and they all give you completely different advice that actually can be quite contradicting to each other. And sometimes we can come away from those type of events, instead of having clarity, we have the opposite. We end up going, I'm more confused than before I listened to that podcast, before I went to that conference. Have you ever experienced that, Zoe?
Totally. Yeah. And you've got all of the ideas from all the people and everything works. So you're like, which one do I do?
Exactly. And everything works for them because they most likely have chosen a tactic or a strategy that plays to their superpower, which is why it's working for them, which is why it's getting their results. But we also have to zoom out a little bit more as well to go, right, but what do they want to even make happen? So that's why for me, I'm all about looking at, well, what is your business about? What do you actually want to make happen? Like, what's the design of your business? How do we align that to your vision, your goals, in a way that still does play to your superpower? Because again, one quick example, I remember, chatting to fellow business coaches a few years ago, and they were saying to me, Osmaan, when are you going to stop doing this one-to-one coaching? Because they were star profiles. And I'm like, never. And they're looking at me like I was an alien, and I'm looking at them like, why would you want to do that, right? But can you see there, it's just because we've got completely different superpowers, we've got different visions, we've got different things that actually light us up. So they're not wrong, and I'm not wrong, but there's just different designs. So that's the first thing. A lot of people end up taking action really quickly. They get so seduced into the tactics, the strategies, right? But if we actually don't know what we want, and we're not looking at our business model, we're not looking at what our vision is and what our goals are, it can end up feeling like we're just doing a lot of things, but we're actually not, channeling it in the best way for us. So it can feel quite scattered instead of like really in flow. And that's why it gives you that chance to then be able to go, right, what's my goal? Right. Let's say if it is about growing your business and you want to be more visible, just using that as an example, you might then listen to different speakers or different books. And before you get so engrossed or into the rabbit hole of it, you're able to go, is this right for me right now? Because you might go, great, there's a webinar that's all about, recording a podcast. I should do that because everybody's saying I should do that, right? But you might go, is that actually part of my vision or my goals for the next 12 months or even the next 90 days? And if it isn't, my best thing to say is just archive that, snooze it. Do not go on that podcast, right? Training, because that's just like maybe a one-day thing, or I should do it. So just don't take action on that. Instead, give yourself that chance to go, right, what is my vision? What am I doing? What's my goals? And then what's my superpower? And therefore, it's like a case of, yes, I might want to grow my audience. What's the best way for me to do that? And you might get some inspiration from different speakers, but you're always then taking it back to you to go, okay, how can I apply that, like knowing my superpower so it feels more in flow? How can I say thank you, but no thank you confidently to certain strategies so that you end up not second guessing yourself or thinking, oh, why am I getting this wrong or feeling like a failure? But also just realizing there's more than one way to do anything in business and all the different parts. But when you choose and you know the best way for you, that's where it can feel much more easier.
I love that. I'm thinking about that someone said to me, it was Hayley Baxter. She's one of the bookkeepers in our community. She said to us on one of our mastermind calls recently, when I go to a conference, I don't write notes, I write to-dos, which I was like, oh, mind blown. But also then I see that in a kind of grid. So I'm picturing my list of to-dos, and then I'm picturing this like column that says, is this in line with a creator profile, for example, and only then choosing the ones that are, and then doing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you go, right, it might not be completely aligned to my superpower, but you go, by me doing something like that, let's say creating a new product or an idea, right? So it doesn't mean that you go, right, I want to create something new or launch something new, but you might then go, but that's not my superpower. Is this man telling me not to do it because I'm not a creator? Not at all, right? But it gives you that chance to then go, okay, why am I doing it? Why might I want to create something new? Is it just because I'm bored? Or is it because actually it's aligned to what my vision is and what my goals are? And if it does connect with your vision and your goals, then it gives you that kind of tick to go, right, yep, it's worth moving forward with it. But then it's a case of going, what's the best way for me to actually move that forward? And again, let me share one quick example with you. I remember years ago, I was doing some in-person coaching. And effectively, I had two business owners back to back that came in. We were talking about like marketing lead magnets, for example. One person was a creator, and we were talking about it, and they were like, oh, great idea. And they literally were going, right, I know what I'm going to do. Right, perfect, great, Osmaan. And in their mind, it's like, it's done, right? They would go and do it, and it wouldn't be an issue. But the other person was an accumulator profile, okay? And they understood why they wanted to do it. They were choosing to see it fits right for what was right for them in that stage of their business. But I knew because of their profile, if I let them walk out of, or my office at that time, for them to go, right, I need to go and create a lead magnet, okay? They would literally drive themselves crazy. They would overcomplicate it. They would procrastinate. It would feel such a heavier task compared to the other client. So in that coaching session, I was able to go, how do we make this as easy as possible for you? Okay, so just having a conversation to go, right, what are some of the biggest challenges or most common questions that your clients ask you? And they were able to rhyme that off so easily. And I'm just flip charting that, and I'm like, great, okay, so would you say these are the 7 key things that you're often asked that actually make a difference for what the result is their clients were doing? And I was like, great. I was like, here you go away now and fill in the blanks. And they were like, oh, that's easy. I can do that. So can you see the difference there, Zoe? They can both still create something, but how you do it makes a big difference. Okay. For somebody else, it might be again going, if I'm sitting there having to have a blank sheet of paper, you might love that, Zoe, right? But for someone like Joe, even being a star, it might be, do you know the best way for me to actually do that is to be in a conversation with other people. If you're a supporter profile, the best way that you probably do that is actually with a group of people, let's say in your community, having a conversation, like chairing a kind of a discussion group. And that would be the part where you'd go, right, I can take the insights I've got there to create whatever that is. Instead of you having to do it in a way that feels much more harder for you, you can then go, what's the best strategy for me to follow to get to that outcome?
Oh yeah. I feel like you should go into marriage counselling, Osmaan. I was just thinking about how my husband is like a new entrepreneur, and I obviously can't coach him because I'm his wife. Like, that's never going to work. I don't think in any relationship. But the way I think about like getting a product to market, for example, is here's my piece of paper, here's the workflows, it's all done. Just go and do that.
Yeah.
and I think like that, and then he will need to go and think about that and ask some questions and get some feedback and do this in a very different way. So do you know what my first action from here is actually to get Ollie to do Wealth Dynamics profile, because I'm really curious, because I can probably help him. And I'm just thinking, if you're in a team, whether it's marriage or whatever, if you're in a team, knowing how other people around you work helps you delegate, helps you get the best out of them, all of those things.
Definitely. And again, just let me share one example, because I like to make things as practical as possible. Because what I often see is, even with partners or collaborators, that sometimes they look at things and they actually butt heads instead of actually going, how do we complement each other? And that's a classic example of, let's say, if you've got a creator, who is someone like yourself, Zoe, and you might have someone like, let's say, I'm just going to choose the accumulator superpower. Accumulators can be one of the most risk averse type of business owners, right? So you might have an idea, you might be brainstorming, collaborating, and you're so excited because you've got the idea of what you're doing. You can see, right, okay, here's what's going to happen, right? But you're kind of at the, creators generally are like at the top of the roof. They're on the skyscraper. They're just looking at the horizon going, this is where I'm going. Right? Whereas an accumulator or a trader, for example, like me, they're much more grounded. They're more about, how's that going to work? When's that going to work? What needs to happen first of all, right? So they might ask a question, or they might challenge the creator and go, oh, that's not going to work because X, Y, and Z. And what can end up happening is a creator feels like, why are you raining on my parade? Why are you trying to kind of, find the faults in it? Instead of going, great, because actually that's not something that I would be thinking about or I'm aware of, So how can I take the insight that they're giving me and then get creative around solving that problem, right? And vice versa, for someone that is like me, or, the other profiles like a deal maker or an accumulator or a trader, we can get so stuck in the detail that some of the best opportunities might be is just having a conversation with people that are the opposite profile from us. So again, like a mechanic or a creator or a star, and they could just ask that question to go, okay, well, what are we trying to achieve here? Do you know what I mean? Or what's the outcome? And that just gives you that clarity to go, okay, so that's what we're doing here. Now you can be much more, it's easier to go and fill in the blanks or take action, because they're so stuck in the how's it going to work or when am I going to do it? And you ask them, well, what are you trying to do? And they're like, I don't really know. But that would be a natural question for you, but they jump to a different question. So I share that because it just gives you that chance to kind of go, right, when I'm supporting someone, or even when I'm having a conversation with someone, what do they best need from me that will help them to get unstuck? What will help them to get unblocked? And it's often a question that they're just not thinking about because it's just not natural for them to think about. But for you, it could be the easiest thing. It's like you unlock the key, and then it allows the rest of it to flow a lot easier for them as well, and for you to not get frustrated.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day. So let's do this another time. I know we're going to share the details for Wealth Dynamics, but Osmaan, for people who are listening to this, who'd love to find out more about what you do, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely recommend a few things. So obviously go to osmansharif.com. That's where you can obviously find out about Wealth Dynamics and, going on the journey to understand your entrepreneurial superpower as well. I've got a podcast as well called Your Business Quest. And again, I've had lovely guests on it, Joe and Zoe, you've been on it as well. And but the key thing around it is every time I'm asking guest questions, I'm always asking, well, how did you do that based upon your superpower? So one of my favorite things is even after somebody does their Wealth Dynamics profile and they let me know what it is, then I'm able to go, great, here's the episodes that I recommend that you prioritize. Here's the ones that you might get inspired by, but don't follow too much because actually they're the opposite profile. So if you are a podcast listener, because you're obviously listening to this, then you could obviously come over and tune into your business quest as well. And I always love having conversations. So please do connect with me on LinkedIn. And it's just Osmaan Sharif. And let me know that you heard me on this podcast conversation and any questions that you've got as well. I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone who's tuned in today. And we'll be back next week for another episode of the Bookkeepers Podcast. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.